small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Welcome to the Rotary Club of Edina. I'm your host, Josh Sprague, proud past president of the Rotary Club of Edina, #1 club in the universe. Today I'm filling in for current president Michael Stanzak, who is working hard out west on the ski slopes with some of our comrades, Paul Moody, Jeff O, etc. This is an annual trip that they take. And so you're stuck with me today, but I want to extend a very special welcome to all of our guests, any visiting Rotarians, and of course our audience live on Zoom trying to follow me around the podium. So, next Monday is a federal holiday and celebrates the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In honor of Dr. King's memory, I would like to share a clip from a famous speech he gave during the 1963 Jobs and Freedom March on Washington, D.C. The march commemorated the 100-year anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's 1863 Emancipation Proclamation, which freed slaves in the rebel-held states and territories. Speaking to a crowd of over 250,000, King laid out his vision for a more just, equal, and humanitarian society in his famous I Have a Dream speech. King had debuted the phrase I have a dream in several speeches leading up to the Washington event, but his advisors discouraged him from using that same old theme again, and so King drafted a version of the speech that didn't include it. However, as King rose to speak on that glorious day, the gospel singer Mahalia Jackson prompted him to tell him about the dream, Martin. Abandoning his prepared text, King improvised the rest of his speech with electrifying results. Let's take a look at that historic moment.
50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
As members of an international service organization dedicated to peace, goodwill, and understanding for all people, we share King's vision for a more just and humane society, and will continue to work together in our community and across the world to achieve it. And now I'd like to thank today's volunteers who helped make this meeting possible, and invite my son, Charles Sprague, to come to the podium to lead us in the invocation, Pledge of Allegiance, and four-way test. Charles?
Everyone, please bow your heads. Dear God, surrounded by violence and cries for justice, we hear your voice telling us what is required. Only to do justice and to love goodness, and to walk humbly with you. Fill us with your mercy so that we in turn may be merciful to others. Strip away pride, suspicion, and racism so that we may seek peace and justice in our communities. Strengthen our hearts so that they beat only to the rhythm of your holy will. Flood our path with your light as we walk humbly toward a future filled with encounter and unity. Be with us, O Lord, in our efforts, for only by the prompting of your grace can we progress towards virtue. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the four-way test.
Is there truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Good afternoon. We have some guests with us today. First of all, Mary Youngren has a guest.
Yes, I do. Yes, welcome. Kirsten Sansom is my guest today, and Kirsten and I met in the staffing industry. She has recently left to start her own consulting business, Sansom Consulting, and Kirsten is going to help companies stop the Great Resignation. She's going to help them with organizational culture and leadership development. So welcome, Kirsten.
Yes, thank you, Mary.
Kayla Beeler has a guest.
Yes, so this is my friend and colleague, David Branner. He is a real estate agent for Coldwell Banker Realty. I'm going to let him say just a quick few seconds about himself.
That's great. I mean, I'm a real estate agent, right? There's a lot of us around, and you all know what we do. But happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Kelly.
And my guest is also a Coldwell Banker Realtor and colleague, as well as City Council member Ron Anderson. Stand up. And as long as I'm here, I thought I'd just add one piece for the vocational happy hour. We have made a change to that. It's now the vocational avocation happy hour, and the next one is on February 2nd, and it'll be Gordy Lewis and Dave Wendt talking about the Angel Flight. So I hope you can join us the first Wednesday in February for that. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Bennerat, and this is my partner in crime, Sylvester Thomas. We are your proud chairs of our club's Race and Equity Committee. As our past president, Josh Sprague, just announced, Rotary welcomes people of all backgrounds, all cultures, experiences, and identities, and is working to create experiences where all people feel welcomed, respected, and valued. Our Race and Equity Committee is working to increase diversity in our membership, bring awareness of race and equity issues in the community and the Twin Cities metropolitan area, develop leaders of color, and support organizations that assist people of color. Last year, when our committee was first formed, we established ourselves as a subgroup of the membership committee. We helped bring in a number of speakers and grant applications. We helped host a prospective member day. We organized a discussion of the book White Fragility, and we worked to recruit more members of color. We also, of course, supported the Minneapolis business Post Plus as part of Rotary International District 5950's Lake Street Partnership.
Thank you. Oops. I tell you, Jennifer, that sounds like a lot. Whoa. Wait till you hear this year's. So this year, our goals are to assist the club's community service, local funding committee in finding worthy nonprofit serving people of color and encouraging them to apply for grants, work with the social committee to promote a progressive dinner at Black-owned or managed restaurants this month. You will hear more about it when Susan gets up in a few minutes. Work with the club's service and program committee to host a prospective member day targeted to people of color. Work with the membership committee to increase the number of Black members and other members of color in the club and assist with onboarding. Collaborate with other Rotary clubs on race and equity issues. Assist the club's leadership with a 5-year vision to include race and equity goals. Work with the club service and programming committee to host a race and equity panel discussion in June. Assist next year's programming committee in finding speakers to talk about racial equity. Assist the nominating committee next fall in identifying members of color to serve on the club's board of directors. And lastly, I would like to thank our committee members for their hard work and support this last 15 months. Most of them are in the room, but Jennifer, Don, Josh, Catherine, Sandy, Susan, and Lindsay, and Bridget. We hope you all will support the work of our committee. If you can't join, we'll definitely love your support to be at some of the events. And we appreciate you considering attending the upcoming Progressive Dinner. And we invite people of color to a meeting or a guest, and simply by talking with others around the room and around your community about race and equity and equality issues. And lastly, I just want to thank everybody in this room for their support the last 15 months. It really helping us kind of get our committee up and running. We appreciate all your support. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Lindsay Smaka and I teach at the high school. I teach chemistry and I also run our Global Scholar program at the high school. And I am now the Interact advisor as well this year. So I originally invited our Interact board to this meeting. However, due to finals and COVID and a lot of other things, none of them could make it, so I'm sorry, but it's just me up here. I want to introduce them first off so you can see some faces. So our president is Owen. One of our vice presidents is Lucy. And Kate, she was at a Rotary meeting a couple months ago. She spoke about her Global Scholar project. Andrew Gump is our secretary. That was his chosen photo. He's a little bit older now. Francesca is our secretary. Olivia is our treasurer. And Natalie is our ambassador at large. So the main reason I'm here is to tell you about our Skate to End Polio event, our annual event. It's going to be held Saturday, February 19th at Bramar's Backyard Arena, 3 to 5:30 p.m. If you take your phones out and go ahead and open that QR code, there's a registration link there. There will be some skates available to rent for $5 or bring your own skates. I'll also work to get this posted in the Barker and on social media so you don't have to look for it later. I put these flyers up in my science hallway at school, and all of my science colleagues were like, didn't we eradicate polio already? Even they didn't know. So, yeah, it's a real thing. So please attend. Thank you.
We got one more.
Oh, one more. Oh, forgot about this. Here is what we have raised in the past. Obviously, last year was a little lower than what we had hoped due to COVID. But the students this year are seeking to raise $2,000, so get that sum back up there. And so hope you can help them. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Catherine Gump, and I am our club's Rotary Foundation Chair this year. And it is my honor today to recognize one of our major donors. But first, I want to give a snapshot of what it means to be a major donor, right? Okay, and thanks to Josh, we've got the list up so you can see it, and I think the Zoom people can see that too. So, a Paul Harris Fellow, cumulative gifts that reach 1,000, and I hope you, any of the new members, know that you can reach this initial Paul Harris Fellow level with a $333 gift because it's matched. You can be a multiple Paul Harris Fellow. The Paul Harris Society is when we choose to give $1,000 or more annually to TRF. A major donor level 1 is a cumulative gift of $10,000. Today we're going to recognize Terry and Mary Lee, who are major donors 2. Their cumulative gift is $25,000. And you can become a member of the Bequest Society by saying in your will that you'll give $10,000. So thank you, Josh, for that. And I think what we see in all our major donors is that they've been regular donors. So I know we've been recognizing our major donors, but you don't get to that level without being a part of the Every Rotarian every year. And that, I think, is just critical. So typically, those are people who give every year. They're giving at the Paul Harris level of $1,000, or really whatever works for them. And this spring, we're going to honor all of our Paul Harris levels. So I really want to encourage all of us to really be that Every Rotarian every year as well. Terry and Mary Lee, will you join me up here? Again, they are major donors level 2. So over the years, they've contributed $25,000 to the Rotary Foundation in support of eradicating polio. So like our Interact Club, they've given money for that. It's supporting sanitation and hygiene. It's supporting education. It's supporting all the peace work we do as Rotarians. So they've just been really special people in doing that. Terry joined our club on June 1st, 1991. So this year he's going to mark 31 years as a member. His classification is distribution. He and his brother had a restaurant equipment and home heating and cooling distribution with customers across the upper Midwest. He was our club president in 2007 and 2008. And Terry and Mary Lee have been annual donors to the Rotary Foundation every year, every Rotarian, since at least 2002. And I think that's as far back as my records went. So I suspect they've been donors for more years than that. And I know Terry served many roles in our club, but I really want to highlight the work he's done for Rotary Youth Exchange. He is a wonderful champion, and he and Mary Lee, I should say, leader and really day-to-day supporter of what I think of one of our most important programs. Young people from our community and around the world have had very special years as youth exchange students because of not only Terry's timely work in helping them work through the ins and outs of the application process, which is, you got to jump through some hoops, and he's such a good coach in doing that, but helping them start the school year, and he makes it fun. Tom and I have seen firsthand both the behind-the-scenes work he does, helping students get registered, and in Paco's case, getting them on the varsity soccer team, and also the special relationships he's formed with students. To me, Terry and Mary Lee really epitomize what many of you are as Rotarians, both really doers and givers. They do and give, not for recognition, because I really think it makes them happy. It's just who they are. So please join me in thanking Terry and Mary Lee for not only their generous financial contributions as major donor level 2, but really for all they do for our club, our community, and the world around us. And thank you. I've asked Terry, again, I think it's important to recognize why we give. So I've asked Terry to make a couple of comments about why he and Mary Lee have been such steadfast supporters of our Rotary Foundation. Then we'll present them with their award.
Two things. kind of were the impetus for me. When I was about 8 or 9, I lived over in Hudson, Wisconsin. And in the neighborhood one summer, there was an oddity. And one of the other older kids took me to this man's house around the corner. And all I could see was his head. And that was because he was in an iron lung. And this was during the summer when it was hot. He just couldn't imagine having to spend the summer not being able to run around and do that. And so the porch had screens on it so we could talk to him. And he had a mirror that was kind of up here, and he could look up and he could see who was there. So every couple of days, some of us would go by and visit him. I can't remember his name today, but he was something that I just never forgot. And the other thing is that Marilee and I, over the last 20 years or so, have spent 1 week every month in the Appalachia region of Kentucky and West Virginia. And we go down there and we repair homes, whether it's a roof or new steps or a wheelchair ramp. It just reminds me of how fortunate we are to be able to give and at the same time kind of do a few things. So thank you.
Teeth, Terry, teeth. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a really fun event scheduled for next Thursday, the 20th, and it's the Progressive Dinner. And this came out of our Race and Equity Committee efforts, and we collaborated with North Minneapolis Rotary Club, and the Progressive Dinner will be held at 3 different restaurants, local restaurants, Black-owned restaurants. This is a celebration of Martin Luther King, and we're going to caravan from here at about 4:45. There's, 4 or 5 cars heading up, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have appetizers at the first restaurant, entree at the second restaurant, and then at the third one, it'll be dessert and coffee. So go onto our website. It's really easy to register. We already have 27 people that have signed up. We have about 13 more spaces, and I really encourage you to look at it and join us. Thank you. One other quick update. Some of you have asked me about Saida, the little girl from Guatemala. I did speak with her this morning. She sounds really, really good. She survived a really, really rough COVID illness. She was hospitalized for several weeks with that. But she and her parents sound great. They want to know when we're coming back to Guatemala. The surgery saved her life. The swelling has been going down, her father told me, but the deformity in her bones are still there. The surgeons in Guatemala want to wait until she's 14, she's 8 now, to do that reconstructive surgery. I'm actually going to do a little research on that and see if we can actually do it a little bit sooner than that. So that's the quick update. Thanks.
One more quick update. 2021 tax receipts, including for the gala, will be going out this week. Becky's all over that. Yay. Okay. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Scott Neal, who will bring us today's program. Scott joined the club in February of 2011 and was sponsored by Jennifer Bennerat and Chris McGinty. He needed 2 because he's such a troublemaker. Scott's classification is city government, and he's a city manager of Edina. Scott attended Iowa State University, go Cyclones, where he graduated with a BA in economics in 1985 and a master's of public administration in 1988. For the next 22 years, Scott earned his career stripes as he served as city manager for the cities of Norris, Tennessee, Mount Pleasant, Iowa, Northfield, Minnesota, Eden Prairie, Minnesota, and finally Edina, Minnesota for the last 10 years. Scott serves as the president of the Minnesota City County Managers Association and is known around the state and country for his astute city management. A little known fact about Scott is that he was voted Jefferson High School's 1982 class president. Scott and his wife of 28 years, Diane, have 3 grown boys, Toby, Turner, and Ethan, all in their 30s, and 1 grandchild, Rosie. And just as a side note, Ethan was a charter member of the Rotary Eco Club in District 5950. Please help me welcome my friend and fellow Rotarian, Scott Neal.
Thanks, Josh. You know, city governments, in particular the Edina city government, really do a lot of things, right? We've got a broad array of facilities and services that we are responsible for. But really at the fundamental level, the most important thing that we do as a city government is provide public safety. Public safety is critical to everything else that we do. It's critical to how we operate parks, how we operate our building and development systems. Everything that we do in the community is really based on a general provision of that feeling that people feel safe in their community. One way that we provide for public safety is through our police department, through law enforcement. And the most important person in that law enforcement function is our chief of police. And so when we had the opportunity to look for a new chief of police, when our former chief, Dave Nelson, retired in June, we went about looking for the right person to lead our community into the future for public safety. We looked for someone with an experience level that was commensurate with the community, but really most importantly, I was looking, because this was my hire, I was looking for somebody who could talk to the community, who could explain how and why we do the things we do, and why public safety is important, and why police officers do the things they do. And so the person that really rose to the top of our list during that selection process is who I'm going to introduce to you to today. His name is Todd Milburn. And Todd joined the city of Edina in August of this past year as our new chief of police. Prior to arriving at Edina, Todd served from 2014 to 2021 as the deputy chief in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, where he worked his way up from the ranks after beginning his career as a community service officer in 1992. Among Todd's responsibilities in Brooklyn Park were overseeing all the functions of the patrol division with a particular focus on 911 response, community engagement, and community-oriented policing. His other roles within the department included patrol officer, SWAT officer, patrol sergeant, public information officer, and inspector commander. And as I read all those to you, it may not mean, if you don't know how a police department works, it may not mean anything to you, but what that means is he's done everything in a police department at one time or another. Todd is a native of St. Paul. He's got a degree in organizational management and leadership from Concordia University. He's married to his wife, Erin, and has 2 children, Jackson and Lauren. And please help me welcome our new chief of police, Todd Milburn.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay in the back? Yeah? Okay, good. Thanks for that. A little bit closer. There we go. Try not to hunch over here. I get accused. All right. So thank you. I appreciate being here. Thank you, Scott, for the nice welcome here. I am Todd Milburn, your new chief of police. I've been here for all of about 5 months-ish, and it's been pretty busy. So I've had a lot of opportunity to get in front of the camera here, talk to a lot of people. And on that side of it, it's been a blessing just to interact with people and get to meet people in a quicker fashion. So my plan here for today is to show you a bunch, well, not a bunch. I've got about 12 or 13 slides here that I'm going to roll through. But what I've found is that as they go through these slides, people have a lot of questions. And we know in law enforcement and things that are going on across the metro right now, there's no bigger topic than crime, law enforcement, things that are going on in the communities too. And so with that brings on a lot of questions here. So what I'd like to do is go through some slides. I'll give you some overview pieces of information on things that have been going on here in this community, things that we're seeing across the metro area, things that are important to us here in the city of Edina, and then open it up for questions on the back end. And so I'll save some time for that. But if we go through some topics here, please stop and ask me questions. We're okay doing that too, and you can ask just about anything that you want. There's really not much that we shy away from here too, so I'm okay with that. I've had tough conversations in many of audiences here before, so that's not a problem either. I will also stay behind here too a little bit afterwards if you want to have a one-on-one with me too. More than welcome to do that. So with that, let's get into it here. Policing in Edina. So today's topic really is just kind of a broad overview, a little bit of history here, a little bit of overview of what the police department provides for our community. But first, let's talk a little bit more about me. I don't like to talk about myself, but I think it's important to give you a quick overview of who I am. So as Scott had indicated, I'm here for about 5 months here, and I came from Brooklyn Park Police. I held a variety of different positions while I was in that agency. I started when I was just a kid out of high school. I grew up in St. Paul, and then I had a job opportunity occur in Brooklyn Park, and so I became a CSO over there. That's a community service officer position, a non-sworn position. We have CSOs here in our department as well. So when I started there, it was a great opportunity, and then other doors opened up, and I became a police officer when I got done with my degree. I held a variety of different positions. One of the things that you see on there is PIO, that's Public Information Officer. So I got the opportunity to meet and talk to a lot of media folks on crime topics and things that were going on. So I spent a lot of time developing those relationships, which really boded well for me over my course of my career while in Brooklyn Park. I did a lot of different positions, including undercover work. I like to say that I was not very successful because I couldn't grow a very good beard, and so they only left me there for about 2 years, and then they promoted me out of that spot. So that was, I was okay with that. So anyways, a lot of different positions, a lot of different opportunities. Can't hear me so well. Much better. Got it. Okay. So anyways, held a lot of different positions within that organization. And when this opportunity opened up, I thought, let's give it a shot and see what happens. And so I was blessed to get this job down here. So this is my only next move in law enforcement. I'm going to be here for the rest of my career. My family, my wife Erin, and my son Jackson, my daughter Lauren, and our new dog, relatively new dog, Millie. We got Millie that we were going to train her to be a hunting dog. We were not very successful with that either, so she is more of a family dog, but she's a great dog. And there's just a bunch of things that I like to do in my downtime. My son is probably going to go to Iowa State, so that's what we're thinking here. We're waiting for him to get his applications and everything, kind of a typical senior, get to the finish line, get everything processed, so we're doing that right now. So that's in his future next year. And then my kids go to Champlin Park High School. I'm a Champlin resident, and then it's a pretty short commute, surprisingly for me. Actually, it takes me about 20 minutes to get here, so that's a good thing too. So just a little bit about Edina Police. Let's just do a broad overview here of how your police department serves your community here. And so, as you know, we're about 50,000 strong here population-wise, but during the daytime, Monday through Friday, we double that. There's a lot of people that come and go from this community for business purposes. Our department has 57 sworn. Currently, we're at 54. We're going through a process. I'll come back to that in a second, but 57 sworn officers is what we have here for this community. We break down in a number of different divisions, but I'll show you a different slide on that. And our quick breakdown is that we have 22 administrative non-sworn staff that run the building and other functions. We have 6 community service officers that, again, provide that kind of that lower level service to the community, animal complaints, parking complaints, things like that, and they help the officers. We have 2 canine units, 2 canine handlers and dogs. And then body cameras were a big thing a couple of years ago. Body cameras were a big thing years ago, and then Edina brought them on about 2 years ago, and those are fully functional in place out in the field right now. They're on every officer that interacts with community members. And we average about 60,000 calls a year, and that's everything. That's proactive work, that's traffic stops, that's response to 911 calls, that's high-level stuff, that's low-level stuff. So you name it, when we get a call through the 911 dispatcher, that's about the volume that we handle on average here. And that's about on par with what you see about this with this same size community. Probably tough to see in the back, but this is our organizational chart, and just real quick, it breaks off into 3 different divisions: patrol, investigation, and support services. Within that, you'll see a number of different units, and so we have just about everything in this department. When you think about the traditional 911 response, we have that, obviously. We have a traffic unit. We also, in our investigative side of things, we have undercover officers. We provide school resource services to the schools. We provide dare education. We have a community engagement wing. I'll come back to that here in a second too on the back of this presentation, but we're continuing to try and do more work in the community with our engagement efforts, and so we have a dedicated unit for that. And then on the right side is our breakdown of our patrol. So we have 12-hour shifts. We have officers that work on day shift and night shift. We have an overlap power shift to help provide with the coverage during the key peak times of the day. And that's the service that they provide. That's our core service, obviously, 911 response to the community here too. So that's where you see most of the robust presence here on the right side of your screen. This is a crime update. This just gives you a snapshot. This goes back to 2020 stats and kind of gives you a sense of where Edina placed that year. We're not done settling the books for last year, so that's why you don't see 2021 yet. We have to go through a process through the federal level and the state BCA level to certify everything before it's done, so I don't have that information yet. But this just gives you a sense of the Part 1 crime rate, the Part 2 crime rates. If you go down, that's the more volume as you go down on the slide. And I also like to point out on the right-hand side, I don't know if I have a laser here or not, but on the right-hand side, you'll see the percent clear. That's a clearance rate. So cases that are assigned to an investigator and are investigated and their clearance rate is what we look at and go by, we do pretty well in that category. So I think that's a pretty good indication. We have some really good high-quality investigators that do really good, complete, robust work that gets cases to the county attorney for charging. So that's what that number depicts on the right side of the screen. Let's talk a little bit about current events, some things that are important to everyone, the things that we've been seeing here locally over the last, I'd say, 4 weeks. That's really got things cooking. As you know, we had a pattern of a couple different things that were happening here. Auto thefts have been a thing across the metro area. We started to see that uptick here in the city of Edina. And lots of stolen cars coming and going, not just within the community, but across the metro area, coming from you name it and going to you name it. But one of the things that we started to see happen as a result of that is that we started to see stolen cars coming into the city, and that suspects were jumping out of the cars and going into garages, and then they were stealing other cars. And the newest trend in the MO is that with higher end cars and the tendency to have fobs inside cars, people tend to leave cars unlocked. And so suspects know that, and they go look for easy opportunities. So just drive through a neighborhood, see a garage door, it's open, jump out, go in, just press the button. If the fob's in the car's running, they're off and running. And so that was very much the case here in the city of Edina. And so when we started to see that happen, we had a couple of burglaries and a number of auto thefts happen. And so we went to work to put out a lot of information and education out to the community. You probably saw that. To get the word out to help us out. Close your garage doors, be alert to your suspicious or any suspicious activity in the neighborhood and pay attention, please. But more importantly, lock up your car. And so we had success with that. We were able to push out some of that stuff, and that got in a much better spot. And then we did a pretty heavy PR campaign, right? So through social media, get the information out to engage our community members. We also had extra officers out in neighborhoods, and so they were tasked with flyers. And so we were actually going door to door. So there were times where we were seeing homes that had garage doors open that we would have officers go out and stop and then just go make contact with people and say, hey, just as a reminder, this is what we're seeing going on in the neighborhood. So that was going on, and then also we had pursuits have been a big thing. And so across the metro, no doubt, you've seen that there's been a lot of pursuits going on across, right, the metro area here as well. And so we too have seen a lot of pursuits here in the city of Edina. I would say that if you look back over the last couple of years, if you go back maybe 3-4 years, if we averaged 10 pursuits per year, we were averaging about 50 to 60 pursuits in the last 2 years. Just things that were starting off, and there's how they end is a different conversation, but that's kind of the uptick of what we're seeing here across the metro area. And then, of course, carjackings, right? Then that started about 3 weeks ago, and you guys are fully aware of the media attention and all the publicity that's centered around the two that we had here as of late, which obviously was at 50th in France, and then our other carjacking. And then, of course, I'm happy to report that our investigators did a great job and did a great follow-up, and then we made some arrests in those cases. And those are continuing on through the system here. And then we had one, unfortunately, last night. And then if you've not heard about that, down in the south part of town, same similar attempt, not a full, didn't actually kind of all the way follow it through, but it was an attempt. And what we believe happened in that case is that started in Richfield. There was one there, it came over here, and then it went to a different city, I think St. Louis Park, and then it may have gone over to Woodbury. So the point in all that is what we're seeing is that there's this trend going across the metro area, right? A lot of carjackings, a lot of thefts it occurs in one city and then it moves on to another city, and they're just jumping around to different cities to cities. One of the things that we do behind the scenes is we band very close together with our partner agencies, our law enforcement partners, and so we do a lot of work behind the scenes to connect, share information, get our intelligence together. We started to meet on a weekly basis with our investigative teams just to make sure that we're talking about the same thing, that we're looking at the same trends and patterns, that we're communicating effectively, and that we're going after the right targeted groups of people, because quite honestly, we're seeing different suspects, all kinds of different suspects committing these types of crimes. So it's not just one group, it's multiple groups that we're seeing kind of move around through the metro area as well. The last bullet I have here, we had a prolific burglary arrest. That was a different case, and so that we pushed out through social media as well. That was a collaborative effort between Bloomington and another nearby city, I think it was Eden Prairie and Minnetonka. So we had a prolific burglar that was doing kind of some of the similar burglary kind of stuff we just talked about, but through great investigative work, figured out where he was, found him, and then pulled him over and stopped him, and he had a lot of stolen items in his car. And he was responsible for probably at least 10 to 20 different burglaries between our different communities as well. So we're really busy behind the scenes doing a lot of good work here, so that's the good news, is that will continue on for us. But we just wanted to, at least I wanted to show you just kind of roughly in Edina where our patterns have evolved here and where we tend to put our resources and where we start to attack our problems. Just a little bit more, quickly highlighted this, but just to expand on briefly, and I know I don't have a lot of time, so I'll go quick. But one of the things that we did was we started to utilize our website, and we've done that traditionally, but to put more information out through social media and then through our email and text blasts. So that was really intentional to get the word out to people that there's these patterns that are evolving. I've already talked through a number of these things, but also important with all that is that we scale back our traffic unit, and so you may not see such a robust traffic presence, or that might be good news for people. That you guys, maybe I shouldn't disclose that. I see some people looking at each other like, all right, awesome, game on. Okay, I just released a secret. All right, so we scale that back, right? Because our priorities are in the neighborhoods, and so we have our officers flooded in, and then we've had officers in on overtime. So we've had a couple officers per day ever since, I think, about 3 weeks ago, in the 50th and France area, in the neighborhood areas here, just to again provide that robust presence and more as a deterrent, right? And so as we see people coming in for these opportunities, if they see police officers, they'll tend to move on and get out of the area too, and that's a pretty common trend that we're seeing as well. And then we've also, in response to the recent uptick, we've had this mobile camera system, and so we put that over at 50th and France. It's more of a deterrent, but it also collects evidence for us if we need to too. We can actually get live on the video feed if needed, and so we've just kept that out there. We're just going to keep that out there, and we move that thing around as well. We've got license plate reader technology in our squad cars, and so that'll flash and capture license plates, and so if we come across stolen vehicles, that's something that we utilize here as well, and we're going to probably look to expand on that, to be quite honest with you. We're going to look at some portable technology that's available to us and look to leverage that here and move that out in the community as well. And then that just kind of depicts our collaborative efforts that we work with. CISA is a Hennepin County criminal intelligence sharing analysis entity that provides a lot of data and information sharing about trends and patterns. So we work really closely with that organization as well behind the scenes. And so there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes when we start seeing crime patterns and trends, and there's a lot of data analysis that we put together to help us out. One of the byproducts of the recent uptick here is the new initiatives that we launched, and one of them was the lock around the clock. So we just, that marketing campaign to get the word out to people to make sure you're locking up your valuables, locking up your vehicles, your homes, those kinds of things. And so we pushed that out through social media and through our public service announcements, and then through our mayor, through his publications as well. So that just gives you an example of some of the work we've been doing. SafeCam, this has really taken off nicely for us, and so we had the big community meeting here, right? We had, for those that were here, like 300-400 people here. It was a really well attended, really good meeting, and so one of the things that we launched was SafeCam. And so that is just a pointer system for us, and what we're asking residents to do is if you have surveillance systems in your home and you want to let us know about it as a pointer system, you can just sign up and tell us that you have something that's available to us potentially. We don't have access to this. We don't get into anyone's data. We don't have any access to the live feeds. It's just if we have an event in a particular neighborhood, we have a pointer system in a database that we can maintain, and we just have investigators will go in and look at it and see that, okay, these people have video camera systems. These are the people I want to go talk to see if they have any footage that might be available to us for criminal investigation kind of stuff or follow-up. And so that has been and will continue to grow, and it'll be a good tool for us because that's evidence collection that'll be helpful for us too on case, successful criminal prosecution. So if you're curious or want more about that, there's, I think, the email address or the website address in the bottom. You just go to our website and you can find the link there for that as well. Real quick, department objectives, things that we're looking at once we get this crime stuff and these patterns trimmed down here. These are the areas that we're focused on over the next year or so. Mental health in the community. So we've had 2 part-time mental health workers embedded in this department and also in Richfield. Recently we just transitioned into a full-time embedded social worker, so we now have that here in Edina, and Richfield did the same on their side. This is a Hennepin County funded, grant funded position, and so we get that full-time worker. I look at it as from the back end or kind of the behind the scenes casework, and so if we have a 911 call to a residence and there's a mental health issue going on, we document it. That worker will help behind the scenes to connect to adequate resources and make sure everything's provided to that person as necessary. We're looking at some things moving forward, which is called like the community paramedic model, and that's something I'm excited about, probably a couple years out, and that gets in more into the response side of things. And so that's to help out police departments. Leverage the fire department. We're very fortunate we have our own full-time fire department here, and so we're going to be able to leverage that and then have a community paramedic model team potentially go out to the community and help with those 911 response calls as well, so that's on the horizon. Officer wellness is a big thing for me. We here in Edina are going to launch a more robust wellness campaign here, so we're going to start doing some more workout on duty for our officers. The job's never been more stressful. in my career, and I've been doing it about 30 years, and in the last 5 years, it's been incredibly stressful for these cops, these young guys coming on, so we're trying to teach them the right way. You can't drink pop at 2 in the morning and chew tobacco and things like that. You gotta work out and you gotta stay active, and so we're trying to message that out, but we have to back that up with some comprehensive training, so we're gonna do a wellness day, by example, soon. I think in about 2 months here, we're gonna have a comprehensive wellness day for our officers. We're bringing in a third-party company that I've had some familiarity with, and so we're excited about that. Check up, neck up, and so that's an annual visit where an officer has to sit down with a mental health professional that's culturally competent in law enforcement to have just a checkup, and all it is just education. How you doing? Are you sleeping okay? Are you stressed out? And then dialogue about stuff, and if an officer needs more help and resources, then those services will be provided for that officer. Racial equity and disparity work, and so I've done some work in my Brooklyn Park days with the criminal justice system and look at opportunities to divert youth, lower level types of crimes, and so we have an eye out towards that over the next year here in Edina as well. And so I think we have an opportunity in the criminal justice system on the front end and law enforcement to help with that conversation and do that work as well. And so we're positioned really, really well to look at that, and so we're going to connect into the county and continue that work here in Edina as well. Communication, we're going to continue to add to that. We're currently working on some third-party service. One of the big things that we heard in these community meetings is communication. Like, we just need to know more information about, timely information about what's going on here in Edina. So we heard that loud and clear. We have a very good communications department, and we're going to continue to expand that out. And so we're looking at some ways to leverage our social media platform and push timely information out, hopefully like an hour or two after an event happens. So if we're talking about carjackings, allowing people to sign up for timely alerts through this third-party software. We're still working out the bugs on that, but we're going to come back to the community on that here pretty soon. And we're proud to announce and happy to announce that we have now the Edina Facebook page that just went live here too, so that's out there if you want to sign up for that or like it. That's there, so we'll use that to expand everything out. Recruitment and hiring, that's also a big topic. We're currently going through a process right now, so we're down 3 officers. We're going through the process. I'm hopeful that we'll get a lot of applicants coming in. Also on Facebook or social media, you'll see some videos, some recruitment marketing material videos that we just pushed out, so there's some really good information that we're trying to pull and steal talent from other departments, maybe even a Brooklyn Park, like where I came from, right? Things like that. So that's kind of where it's at, unfortunately, but you just have to do more now. You just can't sit back and wait for people to come in. You have to be more active in this world. Continuous crime reduction and preventive work. And so that's a big goal for us. It's a continuous improvement kind of model that we offer. And so when we're not dealing with crime, volume of things that are going on, the question becomes, what are you doing with your time in between the 911 calls, and what are you doing with that downtime? And so there'll be a lot of work for us moving forward on how to create that community value in the community in the form of community engagement, right? So we're going to spend a lot more time. We've done a great job. We're just going to expand on that. When COVID gets down, we'll be into the neighborhoods and into the events. This is just a snapshot of all the things that we have done in this department on the community engagement front. So all the things and events that our officers have been a part of over the last number of years. I'm not going to read through all of those, but that just gives you a sampling of all the things that we do. And so we're going to continue to expand that, and my hope is in the next couple of years that page just gets doubled, that we're just going to continue to add to that and do more things in a positive way in the community. Okay, I sped through it. We got about 10 minutes. Lots of hands going up, so we'll start with the Q&As.
Go ahead, I'll start back here.
Chief, question, what are you doing to protect the police officers, which I think is about 70 police officers in the United States killed this past year?
The 70 officers that were killed this year, you're talking about? Nationwide, you're talking about, right? Nationwide officers that are killed. What are we doing to help with that? One of the biggest reasons for the officer involved deaths are COVID. I just actually saw the stat, COVID and accidents. And so we put a lot of premium and training on driving and making sure that officers are safe when they're in their community, and also have a lot of measures and safeguards in place as we talk about PPE and COVID response and things like that too. And additionally, suicide is also another factor as well. So when we talk about wellness and all the work that we're doing, that's all very intentional because we also want to safeguard against those things. If you're tracking down that path, there's opportunities to help. Workout on duty is another good example. And so that's not exclusive to this agency, it's where it came from, we designed it out. But it's super intentional. You can't do enough to get an officer inside a gym while they're on shift to just get on a treadmill and walk if that's all they want to do, just to get out of it for about an hour. It goes a long way. So those are the things that we're working on. Good question.
Question here. Two questions. One is my old neighborhood is where the issue was on Sunnyside the other day. And so what can we do as a community to be helpful? And what can we do for ourselves? You've talked about lockup, lock your car, lock your home. So what can we do as community members to be helpful to you? And then what can we do for ourselves?
Yeah, to be helpful to police, pay attention to your surroundings. In some of our cases, we actually have had witnesses and victims get license plates, and that's really helpful for us to give us some direction on where we need to go. So the more information that you gather and can pass on to officers that respond to the scene, that's a great thing. Or even if you can just pass it on through the 911 call, that takes us in a very, very good track. Personally, what I tell people is pay attention to your surroundings, right? And just pay attention to what's going on. The tendency for us, all of us, is to look in our cell phones and just kind of ignore what's going on around us, and it makes us easy targets. And you gotta stop that, and you gotta kind of pay attention to what's going on. So locking our doors, keeping things secure, pay attention to our surroundings, put our phones away, just being on guard, just kind of paying attention to what's going on around you. Those are key things. Another good topic that we talked about is if you are a victim of a major crime, and it can be shocking, is to make noise, right? And is to be loud and be obnoxious, honk your horn if you're concerned about somebody walking up to your car. Be obvious and be intentional, because what we're finding is most people are just moving on to the easy path of opportunity. And if you're being obnoxious and loud, they're not gonna wanna deal with that, they're just gonna move on to a different area. Same thing is the case for garage doors, and that's what we were talking about there earlier on. All it takes is just to have an open garage door and they're in, but if they close it, they're going to move on, and that's where we're really pushing hard on that prevention side. Good question.
Chief, can you talk a little bit about how to identify a suspicious vehicle?
Yep. So what we're seeing lately is a lot of stolen cars, right? And so cars that maybe have snow on them, right? Somebody that hasn't taken the time to take the snow off of a car. Maybe plates are missing. Maybe snow's packed on top of a license plate. That's also pretty common this time of year as well. Cars that you just don't see. If you live in a neighborhood and you see a car that you've not seen before traveling through your neighborhood and it looks suspicious, you can call 911. We've talked about this before in our community meetings. Like, we know how to handle 911 calls. So if it lines up, great, we'll take care of it. If not, we have to do some more fact finding. We're trained to do that as well. So that's what I would offer to you.
Todd, concerned about those carjackings and the safety of my own wife. She likes to shop at Lund's Barley's on 71st in France, and she likes to do this by herself. She doesn't want to be around at all. So, what would you go through a checklist of things that she should be doing? I don't want her to feel too paranoid about it, but things she should be doing to be safe on that.
My wife likes to take off and shop without me too. I get nervous about that. I had this conversation with my mom because there's a purse snatching. She lives in St. Paul still, where I grew up, and so there's a purse snatching event up there, and she was pretty concerned about it. And one of the things that we're seeing is if you walk around with a purse, again, that you can be a target. So don't carry big purses. My recommendation is like just bring the bare bone basics that you need to go in and out as you travel about your way. Put those phones away. Pay attention to your surroundings. And if you're really uncomfortable, travel with a friend. Right? Just power in numbers.
This is just more of a compliment on your community engagement program. We had one of your officers out to our office last spring and did a whole session on personal safety. And it was very well received, so I just wanted to mention that.
Good, appreciate it.
Okay, last question, Rich.
So you're coming to a community with half the crime rate of that of Brooklyn Park, so congratulations for that. But what do you think your biggest challenges are going to be here in Edina with a much different community base in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion? What's some of the challenges you're going to face? You mentioned a couple of them, but
yeah,
I know there's some more depth there.
Yeah, diversifying this police department. Right, this community is becoming more diverse at a different rate than I would say other cities. I come from Brooklyn Park, and over 50% of the population of Brooklyn Park is diverse, and so that's what I know, and that's what we talk about. And so the more that we can do and have conversations about this topic, but also be strategic about it. And so for us in police, we have to diversify this police department. It's a very white police department. We shouldn't be afraid of that, and it's fine. There's great cops there, and they've done a great job. But we have to think about ways to how to be strategic and to diversify the police department, because we're not getting applicants that are coming in the door that are just going to take care of the conversations for us. So I didn't get into a lot of detail about that, but that's a strategy moving forward, is how to engage our schools, our youth, and get kids excited about law enforcement, but also think about ways to diversify. So I think that is like one of the top priorities and challenges. This community is different, obviously, than in Brooklyn Park. I mean, there's been a lot of crime in Brooklyn Park, and so honestly, from where I come from, we're dealing with really heavy, violent crimes that have been going on, unfortunately, for a good couple of years there, day in and day out. And so that's not happening, unfortunately, in this community. But how do we adjust to what we're dealing with now in these trends? And so we've got some ideas to help collaborate with our partners here locally to help solve the trends and the patterns that we're seeing now. And so it's just kind of being adaptive to the trends and also connecting with our community, communicating, if I can say that right, in an effective way so that we're all on the same page, that we're thinking about crime prevention, that we're in it together, because it can't just be the police and it can't just be our community and our residents. It's got to be a collaborative effort. So that's a big challenge for us as well. That's a good question.
Thank you for being with us today, Chief Milburn. Rotary is a global network of 1.2 million neighbors, friends, leaders, and problem solvers who see the world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities and in ourselves. From literacy and peace to water and health, Rotarians are always looking to better our world, and we stay committed to the end. In honor of your presentation, we will make a donation to My Very Own Bed, a local nonprofit that provides new beds to children moving into stable housing. My Very Own Bed gives a new bed, set of sheets, blanket, pillow, mattress pad, stuffed animal, and a book to children who might otherwise go without.
Cool. Very nice.
Thank you. Okay. Next week, our speaker will be Alfreda Baldwin, Chair of the Board of Directors for Take Charge MN. Take Charge strives to unite Americans around the shared promise that America can work for everyone, regardless of race or social standing. And here's what's going on for events coming up. We've got Progressive Dinner next Thursday. You can still sign up for that. The 27th, our speaker will be Daryl Landstrom from the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Association. January 2nd, as Wade mentioned, we have our vocational avocation happy hour with Lewis and Went. And then finally, February 5th, the annual Edina Rotary Bowling event at Tuttle's. And now, I'd just like to say thank you, Chief, and welcome to the community. Great to have you here. Thank you for all of the presenters today, and especially to Terry and his wife. And thank you for your generous donations to our mission. And now I'd like to invite Charles Sprague back up to the podium to close it out.
As we close today's meeting, I'd like to share a quote from Martin Luther King Jr., an American Baptist minister and activist who became the most visible spokesman and leader in the American Civil Rights Movement from 1955 until his assassination in 1968. King advanced civil rights through nonviolence and civil disobedience, inspired by his Christian beliefs and the nonviolent activism of Mahatma Gandhi. In 1964, King won the Nobel Peace Prize for combating racial inequality through nonviolence resistance. King said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." As you go about your week, remember that together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities and in ourselves, as Rotary pursues its mission to connect the world in meaningful ways. Meeting adjourned.